All right, let's get ready for a deep dive, everyone. We're going to be looking at McDonald's third quarter 2024 earnings. And, we've got the investor call transcript, we've got the official press release, and I got to say it's a little confusing.
It is, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, You've got McDonald's doing great here in the U.S., and the rest of the whole quick service restaurant industry is kind of, they're having a tough time keeping up.
Right.
But globally, though, that's a different story.
Yeah, it really is. It's almost like they're playing two different games at the same time. But okay, let's start with the U.S. success. So they saw an increase of 0.3% in comparable sales, which is pretty impressive in this economy, I'd say.
It is, especially when you think about it, fewer people are actually going to McDonald's. So
Right.
what's interesting is that they're making more money per visit.
Yeah.
So even though traffic is down a little bit, people are spending more when they do go.
Interesting. So what's their secret? Well, the investor call said their $5 meal deal was really doing well. And their marketing campaigns, the collector's edition toys, the chicken Big Mac, those seem to be doing really well.
Yeah, for sure. It shows they're really focused on being the best value, especially for people who are really feeling, inflation these days. They're actually gaining back market share among lower income customers for the first time in over a year. So that's a pretty big deal.
Wow. That is a big deal. And it's not just about, cheap food either. Their customer satisfaction scores are at an all-time high. And service times are getting better. They're really, doing a good job operationally.
Yeah, absolutely. They are committed to being excellent in how they operate. And it's definitely paying off.
Yeah.
And then they've got, menu innovations like the Big Arch and the Chicken Big Mac. Those are creating a lot of buzz and getting people excited.
Yeah. Okay, so the U.S. is doing great, but things aren't looking so hot globally. When you look at the whole picture, global comparable sales actually went down by 1.5%.
Right. They're international operated markets. Those are places like France and the UK. They saw a 2.1% decline. And they're international developmental license markets, which includes China. Those went down even more, by 3.5%.
Wow, so a pretty big difference there. And we can't forget about that E. coli outbreak that was linked to their onions. I mean, that can't be good for, making people trust them.
Yeah, it's definitely a worry. Food safety issues can really hurt a brand's reputation and their sales. To their credit, McDonald's has been trying to fix the issue. And they're working on making sure people feel safe again, but, the question is whether it will be enough.
Yeah, especially in a tough economy like this, when everyone's, watching their spending. Can McDonald's really keep raising prices without losing customers?
That's the big question. They've said they might have to keep price increases lower than inflation until people feel more confident about the economy. It's a tough balance.
It is. So let's take a look at the press release, look at the numbers. So consolidated revenues went up by 3%, but operating income actually decreased by 1%. So how do you explain that?
Well, basically it means they're making less profit even though they're selling more. The cost of ingredients and labor, those have all been going up, and that's cutting into their profit margins.
Right. So even though they're selling more, they're actually making less money from each sale.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, we can't forget about, changes in currency values. McDonald's is a global company, right? So those changes can affect how much money they make. And there were also some one-time expenses for things like restructuring and buying other companies.
Right. So it's not as easy as just saying more sales means more profit.
Definitely not.
There's a lot more going on.
Yeah.
But here's something good. They just said they're increasing their quarterly cash dividend by 6%. That's 48 increases in a row.
Wow. It's a really good sign that McDonald's believes in its long-term strategy. Even though there are challenges right now, they're not just trying to survive, they're investing in their future.
Right. And speaking of the future, the CEO, Chris Kempczinski, said this: "We will stay laser-focused on providing an unparalleled experience with simple, everyday value and affordability that our consumers can count on as they continue to be mindful about their spending." So it sounds like a pretty clear message to me.
It is. It really shows they want to stay relevant and accessible, especially when the economy is not doing great.
Yeah. So it's like we're seeing two different McDonald's, one that's killing it in the U.S. and another that's facing some tough times globally. It really shows how complicated things are for them right now.
Absolutely. But they are adapting, they're innovating, and they're showing they can be resilient. So here's something to think about. Can McDonald's keep offering good value while everything costs more? And the economy might be unstable in the future.
And will their success in the U.S. be enough to make up for their problems globally?
Let's see what happens as we dig deeper.
It's kind of wild how McDonald's is, like this huge global company, but they still manage to you know, adapt to what people in different countries want. Think about some of the crazy menu items you can only get in certain places.
Oh, yeah. Like the McSpicy Paneer Burger in India, or that ebi filet in Japan with shrimp. They're not afraid to try new things and give people what they want.
Yeah, it's like they're speaking all these different food languages,
Yeah.
but they still have that, Golden Arches accent.
But this whole global thing is being really tested right now, what with the economy and costs going up and all the regional stuff we talked about.
For sure, it's a lot to handle. They really need to figure out how to deal with all of that while staying true to what makes them McDonald's. Affordability, convenience, making the customer happy.
Speaking of happy customers, let's talk about their loyalty program. It's doing really well.
Yeah, that's right. The press release said their loyalty members spent like $28 billion across the whole system last year,
Yep.
and almost $8 billion just this quarter.
That's huge. It shows how important it is to build those relationships with customers and reward them for coming back, especially when people are being careful with their money.
And then there's that dividend streak.
Yeah.
48 quarters in a row of increases.
It's amazing. Most companies would love to be that consistent. It shows they're financially stable and they believe in their future.
So looking at this whole earnings report, what do you think the biggest takeaway is?
I think it's the difference between how they're doing in the U.S. and how they're doing everywhere else. The U.S. market is great for them right now. They've got those good value deals, new menu items, and they're running things well.
But it can't just count on the U.S. forever, right?
Nope. The problems in other parts of the world are real, and they need to come up with some new ideas to succeed in those markets if they want to stay on top.
Okay, so what's next for McDonald's? What should we be looking out for?
Well, first of all, how are they going to deal with those food safety issues? They need to get people to trust them again after that E. coli thing.
For sure. And what about their prices? Can they keep offering good value while still making money, with everything costing more?
That's the million-dollar question. And one more thing, I'm curious to see how they use their loyalty program and all their online stuff to keep customers coming back. It's a tough market out there.
All right, so we've covered a lot, the good, the bad, and everything in between.
We have. It's really interesting to see how this company is always changing and facing new challenges.
But before we finish, I think there's one more thing we need to talk about.
What's that?
Sustainability. McDonald's is everywhere, right? So they have a big impact on the environment. And people really care about that these days. They want to support companies that are doing things the right way.
You're right. It's not just about burgers and fries anymore. McDonald's needs to make changes for the planet and because their customers expect it.
So where do they stand on this? Have they, promised to do anything to be more sustainable?
They have, actually. They've got this plan called Scale for Good. It's about reducing their emissions, using sustainable packaging, and making sure animals are treated well.
Okay, but are they actually doing it? Or is it just talk?
It's kind of a mixed bag. They've made some progress, like with recyclable packaging and getting some of their coffee and beef from sustainable sources. But they still have a long way to go. Some people say they're not moving fast enough, and they haven't set specific deadlines or goals.
So they need to do better, but at least they're thinking about it. That's a good first step.
Yeah, and to be fair, making big changes on a global scale is really hard. It involves working with suppliers, franchise owners, and governments all over the world. It's a huge job.
I'm definitely going to be watching to see what they do. It'll be interesting to see how their sustainability stuff changes, along with their finances, and how they adapt to what customers want.
Yeah, me too. It's all connected, and in the end, their success might depend on how well they balance. Making money, being responsible, and taking care of the environment.
That's a good point. So there you have it, a deep dive into McDonald's, from their latest earnings to the bigger picture of the fast food industry.
We've looked at their wins in the U.S., their struggles globally, how they're doing financially, and how they're trying to be more sustainable.
It's been a really interesting journey.
It has.
We hope you learned something and have fun with us. And as always, keep learning and exploring the world around you.
See you next time.
Okay, so we've talked about, how McDonald's is dealing with all this stuff happening globally. But there's the whole money side of things too, right?
Right, yeah. We talked about it a little bit before, but let's look at it a bit closer. So the press release showed that their total revenue went up by 3%, but their operating income, that actually went down by 1%.
Yeah, that seems kind of weird. How can they make more money but have less profit?
It's because of those rising costs we keep talking about. Think about all the stuff that goes into running a McDonald's. Ingredients, paying employees, transportation, energy, all those prices have been going up, and that means their profit margin is getting smaller.
Right, so even though they're selling more, a bigger chunk of each dollar they make is going towards paying for those things.
Exactly. Plus, don't forget about currency exchange rates changing. McDonald's is all over the world, right? So those changes can affect their profits too. And then there were some one-time costs, like when they restructured things or bought other companies.
Okay, so it's not as simple as saying more sales equals more profit.
Nope, not at
There's a
all.
lot more to it than that.
Definitely.
But hey, they're still giving more money to their shareholders. That dividend increase is a good sign, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. 48 quarters in a row of dividend growth. That's impressive. It shows they're confident about their long-term plan and their ability to make money, even when things are tough.
So it sounds like they're thinking about the future, not just right now. They're trying to handle the current situation while also making investments that will pay off later.
Exactly. That's a smart move, especially for a company like McDonald's. They've got a strong brand, and people really like them.
So as we wrap this up, what's the main thing you'd want our listeners to take away from all this?
I think it's that McDonald's is at a really interesting point. They're facing challenges from all directions. The economy is changing, what customers want is changing, people care more about sustainability now, but they're also showing that they can adapt. They're changing with the times, coming up with new ideas to stay ahead.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story. And it'll be interesting to see what happens next.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of McDonald's.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
And remember, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking questions.
See you next time.